Hi, everybody. My name is Ron Yaish with Balanced Financial Life. We focus on financial and money education. So please join our community. We'd love to have you be part of the discussion. Today, we're going to be discussing the emergency fund, but not just the emergency fund out there. The emergency fund vis-a-vis an account that we call the USA account. It's something that we coined. It's a term that we use when discussing independent contractors and the self-employed individual. And that is the uncontrollable swing account. Now, what is that one? It's beyond the conversation today. To go into that, you could check out our website. I'll have the link below if you want to check that one out. Uncontrollable swing account has to do with somebody who is self-employed. So you may have a month where things, or a few months where things are really amazing, and then you may have some quiet months. And we promote this whole idea of having, putting away an average of that, 12-month average of that, so that you are able to count on the money when you need it, even when things are slow. But that's not today's discussion. Today's discussion is the emergency fund, a very different account. So what we usually recommend, and I will go into a disclosure now, we're not making financial recommendations. This is for educational purposes only. Before taking any action, please seek the advice of a financial or a tax professional. What I started explaining regarding the emergency fund is that, similar to your grocery bill and your cell phone bill, there needs to be a line item there called emergency fund, so that that need to put that aside, especially for somebody who is self-employed, especially for somebody who is an independent contractor, essentially working for themselves. Even though you may be part of another institution, you may be working in a hospital, but you're an independent contractor. You may be, I have a lot of nurses that are independent contractors when they're working with the various different clinics. You know, that could be my real estate agents, that could be the mortgage broker, the therapists, that could be our nutritionists. There are a number of psychologists. There are a number of people out there that have this. They run their own shops. They run their own business. They're self-employed. Even though they have an LLC, even though they have an S Corp or a C Corp, whatever, however you're incorporated is somewhat irrelevant, because at the end of the day, it's about you and a small team. And very often it may just be you. So you need to include what we would recommend, which is really best practice, is to include, and this is coming from the financial gurus out there, the likes of Dave Ramsey and Rachel Cruz and others, where one should really set that aside and start putting money aside every month in order to have money available in this emergency fund. So what is the emergency fund for? When would I use it? How much do I need? And what do I do with it? Do I invest it? Do I not invest it? Classic questions that come up all the time. Okay, so question number one, which we get very often, which is how much do I need? So the real answer back, which is really asking you the question based on your question, how much do you spend on an average month? What are your expenses like? So if you told me your expenses were $5,000, you told me your expenses are $10,000, that's very different. On the low end, the thought is that one should have anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. So if you're dealing with somebody who spends $5,000 a month, that individual should put aside anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000, not a year, just to have that in an account. Now that may not be there today, and you may only have $1,000 a month in positive cash flow that you have to do a lot of things with, right? We have to take that $1,000 or the $500 or the $100 and break that up into many different parts. And that's what we would call positive cash flow. And part of that may go into this emergency fund account. And it may take you 2 years. It may take you 6 years to get to your $15,000. It may, so that's one thing. Now that is 3 to 6 months. Excuse me, 3 to 6 months of money set aside into this emergency account. What I have seen and what I've heard from individuals out there, other financial educators and financial professionals, when I'm not wearing this educator hat, I am in the field working with individuals as their financial advisor. For someone who is runs their own business, runs their small business, is an independent contractor, is self-employed. Excuse me one second. I usually recommend or think that a 12 months, 9 to 12 months would be more appropriate for somebody in that situation, because that individual, because they're working on their own, doesn't have access to certain unemployment benefits. If something were to come up on the job and you were going to be out of work for 3 to 6 months, who's covering the bills? Who's going to make sure the mortgage gets paid? Who's going to make sure all these things are taken care of? Whereas if you were a W-2 employee, if you were working for a company and you were salaried by that organization, if something happened, you would have some sort of coverage. You can go on some level of disability from the government or workman's comp, etc. So that becomes very tricky. So all the more so in your situation, if you are somebody who is self-employed or runs your own small business or whatever it is, I would definitely recommend, or an individual or a contractor, independent contractor, where you get a 1099. This is how you know if you're in that situation. If you work for somebody and instead of getting a W-2 form at the end of the year, you got a 1099. So you would wind up knowing that you are an independent contractor. Now we do get a number of different types of 1099s around tax time. The first week in January, the second week in January, some of us get 1099Is, which is for interest. You may have various different 1099s, but the 1099 that has to do with independent contract work, you would see that, and that would come to you at the end of the year. Now the upside is that you're working for yourself and you really have the American dream in front of you. The downside is you're going to also be responsible for taxes. So the 3 accounts, and again, beyond the scope today, would be the emergency fund. 2 would be the USA fund that we talk about, that we mentioned before. And then 3 is, which should really be on your business side of your ledger, which is taxes. Because as opposed to a salaried employee, where the company's taking out money already, and that money is being taken out before you get your check, when you're getting your check, for the most part, if you're a 1099 employee, you're going to have to be responsible for that tax at the end of the year. Now that's hefty. So what I know that small business owners would set aside anywhere from 25% to 30% of their monthly check that comes in, and put it into an account that's dedicated for taxes, and they don't use it for anything else. They're not using it to pay the credit card bills. They're not using that as for, to tap into for any spending money, etc., or to get the car fixed. That money's there only to use when they have to pay taxes. And what I've heard, what some people do, which is kind of cute, is at the end of the year, once they speak to a tax professional or their CPA or tax planner or whoever they wind up working with, they pay their taxes, and then whatever's left, they give themselves that as a bonus. So they'll clear that account out, give themselves the bonus as if they got a refund, and then they start this cycle over again, where they're putting 25 to 30% away at every paycheck into this account, so that so money could be there when you need it. Okay, let's come back to the emergency fund. So you definitely want to set money aside, and put that into the emergency fund. Unfortunately, what we have found is that because it's not something which is pressing, it's not the bill that's sitting on the table, it's not their mortgage, it's, some people put it on the back burner. Yes, you understand, We're all, bright enough to understand if this could come into play, how important it could be. But I have too much on my plate now. I can't handle it. What you don't realize is the more you put away into that type of an account, the more peace of mind you will have, or you should have, that you are going to be covered in the event of a whatever. In the event that you can't work, in the event you got sick, in the event you lost your job, in the event that you're not getting hired, in the event that, the roof gave in the event that you have to move, whatever it is that comes up, you should have the peace of mind that that's something that you're going to be okay, and you're going to be okay and you're going to be able to handle it. Because what we don't want you to do is we don't want you to say, okay, which I've heard some people say, and I think it's faulty rationale. They'll say, you know what, I'm going to put money aside into my I'm an independent contractor. I'm going to put money aside into my solo 401k or my SEP IRA, and if I have an emergency, I'm going to tap into that money. Oh my goodness! First of all, you're gonna mess up whatever retirement planning you have. A, B, you're going to pay penalties. C, you're going to wind up paying taxes on that money. I mean, whoa. So for somebody who's going to want to take out, $10,000, out of that account, you're going to get, I believe it's a 10% penalty. So you're ready. Okay, so now you're down to 9. Now you're going to pay taxes on that 10. So let's say that was 30%. Another $3,000. So you're going to walk away with $6,000. It's really worth it. And some people say, well, maybe I want to borrow. Different discussion, different topic. Okay, just want you to know. Let me know if you have any questions. We do our best to respond and to follow up. We can't always get to everybody, but we really do our best. So try to leave a comment below. Let us know what's on your mind. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you have anything to add, and we'd love to hear from you. Again, this is Ron Yaish with Balanced Financial Life, and thank you for joining us today.